Welcome back, everybody, and today I am bringing you the first installment of the Fantasy Awards. We're going to go position group by position group. Today we'll start off with QBs. I was going to do it after week 16, but I figured I'd wait until week 17. One of the awards maybe should have applied to week 17 as well, but we'll get there when we get there. Hopefully you guys enjoy. I think it'll be a fun little way to recap the season, go position by position, and see just who panned out, just who didn't, and who was really, really close to being one of the greatest fantasy quarterbacks of all time. Just to start off with some quick ground rules, we are doing one award per player. That is why Josh Allen is not going to be winning almost every single thing on here. I feel like it's more spicy, adds more variety if we actually try to divvy up the awards and make them more creative. That's the only rule, honestly. Let's hop right into it with our MVP of the year at the quarterback position, and it is going to be Justin Herbert. Pretty much everybody before the draft was saying this kid doesn't have it. His senior year at Oregon, he didn't show any progress, no development. If you take him at 6, he is going to bust, and he will bust tremendously and cost somebody their job. So far, that's not looking like the case. This almost unprecedented rise to stardom was a really, really huge surprise, and this was reflected in his ADP. He went undrafted pretty much everywhere unless you're doing a dynasty startup or a rookie draft, but we're focusing on redraft here. So he basically went undrafted unless you're the biggest diehard Chargers fan who took the ultimate flyer in the last round of their draft. He went from not starting week 1 to being the quarterback 9 overall on the season. And if he had played week 1 with his point per game average of 22.9, he would have been the quarterback 7. MVP isn't always going to be the best player because if it was, it would have been Josh Allen, the QB1. But when you find him on the waiver wire, a talent like this who produces so well, it allows you potentially take a different guy like Travis Kelce earlier on instead of Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes, or a guy like Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Adam Thielen, to name a few, in those middle rounds instead of taking a guy who was pretty good like Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. But when you find a guy off the waiver wire like this, it allows you to focus more of that draft capital when you're in the draft on actual position guys who can really make a difference. Sure, you might have taken a quarterback in there somewhere, but when you find a guy like this on the waiver wire, it just opens up everything else for your team. Allen could have very well been here due to his ADP and how well he performed, but the value in finding a quarterback one that you can play every week, it's just too good to not have him as the MVP, and there's a pretty nice story attached to it too. Going from the MVP to the most disappointing quarterback, it's going to be Lamar Jackson. He did pull it together at the end of the year as the quarterback 2 overall from weeks 13 to 16. But he finished this year as the overall quarterback 10 and simply failed to live up to his ADP of about 17. Around this range, you found guys like Kelce at 19, Adam Thielen at 32, and other quarterbacks like Kyler Murray and Josh Allen, who finished in the top 6 and I believe the number 1 overall quarterback at picks 58 and 74 respectively. When you're being picked at the middle of the second round on average, you are being picked as a safe option, a guy you can start week in, week out, not have to worry about that. And for a large part of the season, Lamar Jackson wasn't giving that to you. 6 out of his 10 weeks prior to week 13, he finished outside of the top 10 as a quarterback. When you're spending such high draft capital on a guy, for him to not finish in the top 10 half of the weeks of the regular season, while sure the playoffs are important, if you don't win in the regular season, you're not going to make the playoffs. And when you use a draft pick on a guy in the second round, you expect him to be a person that carries your team. Now, sure, you could have overcome this and made the playoffs with him and had him carry you a championship in those later rounds. But for what he did for you over the course of a wide majority of the season, he was disappointing. There's no two ways to shake it. He didn't live up to his ADP. There were much better players that were taken later or around the same spot that you could have went. And yet again, the idea that you should go quarterback early because it provides you this grand advantage simply fails. Every year, there's a quarterback that gets taken early, and they never pan out. This year, it was Lamar and Mahomes. Lamar was bad for where you took him. Mahomes was fine. But in those middle late rounds, you keep finding guys like Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Ryan Tannehill in super late rounds who finished above Lamar Jackson. Every year, the narrative that you need to take a quarterback early and you should do it in that round 2, round 3 turn, it just simply gets laid to rest yet again. Next award up is the Championship Winner Award. I'm giving this to Tom Brady. Tom Terrific in Week 16, when I'm assuming most of your championships were, if not Week 16, Week 17, sorry, or it was the back half of your championship if you did a 2-week format. Either way, he had one last big game, for everybody who held out faith in him against Detroit. He went for around 30, 29.92, I believe, or almost 40 if you're in a 6-point per passing touchdown league. That was only in one half of football. That is probably the most impressive thing about this, that if he was given the whole game, or at least 3 quarters, I think he would have dropped 45 or probably like 55 depending on point per touchdown scoring format. It was absolutely incredible, and he looked amazing from both a real-life view and a fantasy view. Getting 30 points from your quarterback any week is a win. Getting it from him in one half is a crazy win. Now, while we didn't want to see him get benched and we wanted to get at least 1 or 2 more drives out of him, you can't complain about the quarterback 2 in just one half of football. And he was less than 3 points away from quarterback 1 status. Josh Allen had 32.3. He was this close to finishing the quarterback 1 with one half of football in the most important week of the Fantasy Football Championship. It's a ridiculous accomplishment for a guy who might have been sitting on your wire going into week 16. Imagine that. Need a guy, pick him up off your wire, quarterback 2 in one half of football. Can't get better. And moving on from one Patriots quarterback to another, one former Patriots quarterback, the 1 Week Wonder Award goes to nobody besides Cam Newton. And this one hurts as a Patriots fan, repping the brand no matter what happens. I want Kyle Pitts, but that's besides the point. Cam did have a few fine weeks, a few top 10 finishes, but week 2 against Seattle was such a beautiful, beautiful week for fantasy owners, for Patriots fans, for football fans. It looked for just 1 week like Super Cam was back. He had a fine week 1, but then week 2 he comes out against Seattle, drops nearly 40 points, almost carries the Patriots to an upset victory. It gave everybody hope. Real football fans, Patriots fans, guys who had Cam in fantasy, even people who didn't have Cam were like, fuck, dude, Cam might be back. And then he just fell off a cliff. The lack of arm talent really started to show. The lack of weapons around him really started to show. He kept up the ground production here and there, but there's a week where he literally gave you negative points. You could have started nobody and gotten more points from them than Cam Newton 1 week. I could almost give him this award based on the fact that he finished negative, but I wasn't going to. He had that one outstanding week in week 2, but from there it was either fine or just bad. We went from the quarterback 1 in week 2 to the quarterback 16 on the year. Not even close to being a quarterback 1 if you're in a 10 team, and very outside of consideration if you were in a 12 team. It was an outstanding performance that gave us all hope, but that hope was dashed like it always is. The penultimate award is the What Could Have Been award. This one for all position groups is going to be focused about injuries, and it can't be anybody else but Dak Prescott. From weeks 1 through 4, his 4 full games on the year, he was the quarterback 1, averaging over 31 fantasy points per game, with a total of 125.2 over those 4 weeks, with 1,690 passing yards and 12 total touchdowns. If he had played a full season, he was on pace for 6,700 passing yards, 36 passing touchdowns, and 12 rushing touchdowns, with 6 total turnovers. If he had played the full season at that pace, which is highly likely, I'll admit it, he would have had 500.8 fantasy points, or if you factor in turnovers, around 490. With the 500 number, that would have been the second greatest fantasy quarterback season since 1997, only trailing Peyton Manning in 2013. And depending on passing touchdown points worth or turnover worth, he would have been third behind Lamar Jackson's historic campaign from last year. Even if he didn't uphold this pace, and I doubt he would have, because if any quarterback is passing for 6,800 yards on a year, something is up. Even if he didn't come close to that, he would have almost been guaranteed to smash 5,000 yards, smash 30 touchdowns, and probably get at least 6 on the ground, which would have been an incredible fantasy quarterback, as well as a good guy to root for in general. There's nothing to really dislike about Dak Prescott except for the fact that he gave us this very glimpse, showing this flash in the pan for 4 weeks that we couldn't get over a full season. As someone that drafted him, I wish I had him for the full season. He could have saved my horrific dumpster fire of a team. But hey, there's always next year. I guarantee you he's going to slip in drafts because of his injury. The final award, it's a very straightforward one. It's going to be the Position 1 award. So this is the QB1 award. It's going to go to Josh Allen. This is just going to go to the best player at their position. They deserve to be mentioned. They deserve to be last. Save the best for last. He absolutely fucking killed it. even with that one down stretch of 4 weeks, I believe it was 6 to 9, 7 to 10, somewhere in that range, he still finishes the quarterback one. He absolutely blew away his ADP of 74. You got the quarterback one on the season in the middle of the 8th round, depending on the size of your league. That's absolutely insane. He did it through the air. He did it on the ground. He did it every fucking week. Josh Allen was the quarterback one this year. And considering no quarterback has went back-to-back as the QB1 since 2003 and 2004 when Dante Culpepper did it, I'm excited to see who takes home this award next year. Could be Allen. I do doubt it given based on the history, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. That's going to be it for today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said, I think this will be a fun little way to recap the season, take a look at some of our favorite guys, our guys who performed expectations, guys who blew past them, guys who gave us just a little glimmer of hope of what they could have done had they stayed healthy, all that type of fun stuff. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe. I'm going to be dropping fantasy content all throughout the off season. In my opinion, this is the best part of the year. All this time spent on analysis, draft profiles, player profiles, what teams are going to do in the NFL draft, how you should approach your drafts, whether they be startups or redraft leagues, all that type of fun stuff. If you're looking for that type of content, I'm the guy. So like I said, leave a like and subscribe. Drop a comment below if you enjoyed. If you didn't, leave a dislike. Leave a comment telling me why. That's going to be it for me today, guys. Have a nice night.